That the crazy thing is the fact that, first of all, you were on reserve. You weren't even supposed to be on that initial flight.
Mm-hmm.
Then the fact that he was on the flight coming back, but it wasn't even the Jamaica to Orlando. It was Fort Lauderdale
Yes.
to Detroit. And that he was going back to Detroit too.
Yes.
Like he wasn't even on the Detroit leg the first time around. I'm Emily Calloway, and this is Kismet. Kismet is a podcast featuring your true love stories. Today, I will be speaking with Julieta Duvall, who will be sharing her Kismet story of how she crossed paths with her soulmate twice in a single week in completely different cities. Hello, Julieta. Thank you so much for joining me today on Kismet. How are you doing?
Hi, Emily. Good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, when I heard your story about all the sort of, I don't know, the magical way that you met your person and the
Mm-hmm.
things that had to happen, I just knew I had to have you on the podcast. So
You're so cute. Thank you.
I'm really excited to have you on and to hear more about your story and for you to share that story with the world. So, to get started, I'd love for you to just share a bit about yourself,
Okay.
apart from your partner, just who you are and, what you enjoy doing and anything that you want to just share with the world.
Oh my goodness. So I enjoy a lot of things. I am a multi-passionate person. I love books. I have been in aviation for close to 20 years, so I love to travel and I love to experience places from a local perspective. So I love very quiet, intimate local spaces.
Where's your favorite place that you've been, or top 3 favorite places that you've been in?
There are so many, but some of the ones that come to mind, Portland, Maine. I love being by the water, so I love Portland. And what else I love? I used to like New York actually a lot. I like the idea of once being a commuter, but nowadays I definitely like being within nature. So I love trees. I love California by the state parks, mostly not really the city. I'm just a quiet, trees, lots of nature. I love that. So.
Yeah. So, take us through basically your life to the point that you met your person. So, where you essentially were in your life at that point, if you were looking for love, if you were happy being single, like what your sort of mind space was around relationships and everything at that point.
Yeah, so I definitely don't think I was happy being single. I got married when I was really young. I was 19 when I got married. I turned 20 so we got married on the 9th of August and I turned 20 on the 26th. So I was super young. I was afraid to say no to the marriage. It wasn't terribly bad. It just wasn't right. So when we parted ways, I had to look for insurance and that's how I ended up working for a local airline. And I worked there in the call center for a year and then I transferred to in-flight in 2005, May of 2005. So back then I was a first year flight attendant and I was completely broke. I mean, I was packing food for 4 days. It was a lot. And it was all that I was doing. So I wasn't really looking, but I knew I wanted someone. And I was kind of like, what is this? Is it ever going to happen for me? I wasn't sure that the space that I was in the airline industry was the best for me to meet someone. So I felt kind of disappointed, but then I went through summer travel, which is really busy. And I was like, I'm just going to give up. Like, I felt like there was like nothing there. And I did. I basically like just stop, not necessarily looking, but I was tired of it. I was tired of, trying to meet people. Back then, this is 2005, so there was really no apps. So I was just going
No.
by what people were saying, oh, you should meet this person and stuff like that. So I just kind of stopped and dedicated myself to work. So I was on call and I was working a lot. And it was in December 2005 where the airline that I used to work for Spirit, so I don't work there anymore. but I worked the first flight. They sent me from Detroit to Orlando. And then I was working the flight from Orlando to Montego Bay, Jamaica. It was Spirit's like first inaugural flight into Jamaica. And I was flying up front. So I was like at the boarding door. And when we left for Jamaica, I was doing a final walkthrough, and I walked and I saw my husband on the window seat, and I just saw him. Like I thought he was skewed, but that was it. There was nothing there as far as like, oh, this person, we were late. It was hot. The airplane was hot. I was sweating. It was the middle of the day. So it was like super hot in Orlando.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Had you met someone at that point on a plane before, or was this the first time that you sort of had someone catch your eye that
yeah, it was kind of the first time to like stop and look. I had met other people, but it was just mostly like conversations. It really didn't. I feel like a lot of people have like the wrong impression of what our job looks like. But really, we go in and out of airplanes. So really people are on their travel. So it's not like it was like definite to where you stop and, have this interactions all the time. So it was nothing that turned into something up until that
yeah.
point.
Well, I know myself, having been in hospitality for a number of years, it's difficult because people are coming,
Yes.
in and out, and it's very similar in a lot of ways in that like your schedule makes things so challenging too to have and maintain relationships because you're on the go. For me in
Yes.
hospitality, I was working
Yes.
nights, but aviation's very similar in that
Mhm.
respect where you're on the
Yes.
go all the time.
Yes.
So you're on this first flight, and you told me that you were selected because you were a Spanish speaker for this leg, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so I was a Spanish speaker for Spirit too, but this particular like I was on reserve. So I was kind of
Okay.
basically on call, and they just said, "We're gonna fly you into Orlando, you're gonna work this trip." It was kind of like a last minute trip. So it wasn't something that I had planned, nothing. It just kind of got dumped on my schedule. And I did the final walkthrough. I saw him and I thought, well, he's kind of cute. And then I went back to, the front. We dropped him off. I don't remember seeing him getting off the airplane. And that was that. That really, truly, that was the end of it. And I saw him a week or however many days. I don't remember how many days he was in Jamaica. So he went to Jamaica because a friend of his got married in at a Sandals resort, I believe, in Montego Bay. So he was invited to the wedding, and he went to the wedding. That's when they bought the package. That's how they bought the flight. So he was at the wedding. He came back, and the flights, the way Spirit used to work, that was the all of the islands, Montego Bay, Kingston, Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, they will all land around the same time, and then they will all connect to the East Coast. So Atlantic City, New York, Detroit, Chicago, they would all connect. So customs was always really busy, and we would always end up waiting for people at the gates, right? So I happened to be working the flight from Fort Lauderdale back to Detroit that time. And we were just sitting there. I'm just sitting there waiting for people. And he was one of those people. So when I was standing by the door, and then I saw him come in to the airplane, and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember him. And he'd remember me too. Like there was like a brief, how that brief connection where you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
I know you.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, it kind of was like that. And then he walked to the back. He was seated maybe 2 or 3 rows from the back. And he was also, my jump seat was all the way to the back. So I was seated just a few rows also from where he was too.
Wow.
I know.
I mean, that the crazy thing is the fact that first of all, you were on reserve. You weren't even supposed to be on that initial flight.
Hmm.
So first flight going down there on reserve. Then the fact that he was on the flight coming back, but it wasn't even the Jamaica to Orlando. It was Fort Lauderdale
Yes.
to Detroit, and then he was going back to Detroit too.
Yes.
Like he wasn't even on the Detroit leg the first time around.
No, no.
So, and one, I mean, that's just crazy. But you also mentioned that this with Spirit, like. I remember you saying it was part of a package that he bought with
Yes.
his, yeah. So that's an interesting part too, I think, that he just ended up on this Spirit line as
I
well.
know. It really was meant to be though, because, years later into our conversations, he would say that he said that before he got on the airplane, before he started the trip or his journey to Jamaica, he said, I know I'm going to meet my future wife on this trip. There was a knowing. And my husband, one thing is that he is a very intuitive person, and his intuition hardly ever fails. So he just knew that. And having him on a flight twice, it's very rare. So in 20 years of flying, it happened with him, and that was the first time. And then it happened with another passenger, which I had, and we joked about it because I say, be careful, because the last time this happened, I ended up marrying the guy. And he was just, we were just laughing about it. But it's very rare that we get the same crew and the passengers, twice.
So, okay, let's go back to the original story. So you're in your jump seat. He's on the flight, a
Yes.
couple rows away. And so are you talking on the flight? Are you saying, "Hey, I know you." Like what was going on with this dynamic? I mean, we know that you ended up together, but how did you get to that point where you ended up together?
Yeah, so I had an unaccompanied minor. So it was a child, and they're traveling by themselves. So we are in charge of taking care of them. So we just our job is to like give them a safety briefing, and I throughout the flight we check on them. So after the service, I checked on the and the people on his row, they were just talking to me, and it was like, like people coming back from vacation. So there was like, they were laughing, and it just kind of, it eventually it involved the area around his seat, and it eventually he got involved in the conversation. And then we just kind of zone into each other and realized that we live really close to each other. So we just kind of we started talking like as a group, like the last two rows of the aircraft. And then as we started to talk more and be more interested in each other, we kind of left everybody out of the conversation. And we just kept talking like ourselves. And then, like I said, we realized we lived close to each other. And then that was it. We, had to prepare for landing. So I sat back in my jump seat, and then people started deplaning. So we were in the back of the aircraft. So we had to wait about, 15, 20 minutes. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I felt something. I was like, I feel like there's something here, but I didn't really know how to approach it either. So luckily he wrote his name and his phone number on the corner of the safety information card, and then he gave it to me. And he gave it to me, and I was like, okay. And we walked out together. So because we were the last flight into Detroit, so he gives me his name and his phone number, and we walk out together. And we were going in the same direction towards baggage claim that was going in the parking lot because we both lived there. And and I remember going down the escalator, and I like turned around and I said, by the way, my name is Julieta. And I had it in my wings the whole time. It's like, he's like, oh, I know. It was just like, I was just so nervous, but because we were walking, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? Yes, but that's kind of was the beginning of it. And that was right before New Year's Eve, 2005. So,
Okay. And so he gave you his number.
yes.
And so you obviously reached out or you were on a flight again.
No, so I did.
No, so yeah.
Yeah, so I did call. Now he says, and I'm like a little fussy on this, but he always says that I broke the rule of like some sort of like timing for calling. So I waited to call, and this was mostly due to my work schedule. So it was my first Christmas on the job, and Christmas is always crazy. There's a snowstorm, always something happening. So I was actually busy. And then finally I was somewhere, I don't know if it was in my apartment or at a hotel, and I called him. And he later said that he thought I wasn't gonna call because I waited too long.
Mm-hmm.
We talked on the phone just a little bit, and then we made a date to go out whenever I was um, after that trip. So I think I was at a hotel, and we went out on our first date, and we have been together ever since.
Oh my goodness. So first date,
Yes.
um, what did you do, and how quickly did you realize like, hey, this is something real. I think this is the one.
We went to the movies just like back then. It was like movies and dinner, and it felt like right away. My husband, I feel like I am like, if you think of a heartbeat, like a regular heartbeat, I'm like high and lows. I have very highs and lows, and my husband's like even Steven. Like
Mm-hmm.
he is very thoughtful. He's very calm, cool, and collected. And I'm just like a freaking heartbeat of emotions. And it felt like we just blended together. It was just so easy to be around each other that and it wasn't really like we're going to be together forever, because back then I was saying to myself that I didn't want to get married again, and B, I was actually saying that I didn't want to have children. So I said to him, I said, listen, if this is something that you want to do, get married and have children, then I don't think we're for each other, because I don't think I want those things. So I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to also invest my time. And he's like, "It's okay. Like, it's okay. We'll just figure out as we go." And then, I mean, things happen. Now we have two boys, and we are married. And and yes, I mean, we're still here. So, yeah, it was just natural. I don't think it was just so easy to be around each other that we just kind of like, it was just kept going, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Just kept going. I like it. So in our prior conversation, you mentioned this studying of human design, and it
Yes.
was very intriguing. This study, was not really familiar with it, but your studies that you brought into your relationship and how
Mhm.
you and your husband have worked through,
Mhm.
difficult times using these principles. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that, because this podcast, while it's about the magical ways people meet and like the synchronicities that bring people together, like you being on a flight two times with this
Yes.
man and having that strong attraction and connection, and then living down the street from each other, there's also that element of, well, how do you keep it going? How, especially when you're in aviation and you're away and you've got like a lot of distance with
Mhm.
that, and then like obviously the things that happen just in relationships, the ups and downs.
Yeah, so I'll add to the synchronicity that also our first date was January 5th, 2006, and my oldest son was born January 5th, 2014.
Wow.
So 8 years later to the date from when we met, we had a child. And through that process, some of the ups and downs that we went to was postpartum depression. I was really, really bad with postpartum depression for almost 2 years after my oldest son was born. It still brings a lot of heartache because I was just so mean. I was just mean, and I felt that he was the only one that I could be like completely open as to what I was feeling in those moments, which were just like they were just moments that were just so dark sometimes. And that's also part of my design. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I just like
No, I mean,
it's
it's real. This is like what it's about. It's real, and that's what partnership is, right?
yeah, it was so hard to go through that. So Um, yeah, I have really highs and lows, and knowing through human design, I have been able to tape taper a little bit, like know when they're coming, and also set my boundaries as to when it's a low. I no longer get stuck in trying to find out why I'm low. I just know that I am, and I know that it's going to push me into something else. So I basically sometimes remove myself from the equation as far as
Mhm.
like, okay. And then I talk to my husband, and this is where I'll say, like, I'm just not like I'm not in a good space. And then he'll usually ask, is there something I can do? And I'm like, I just need some like alone time. And then we'll work together to make sure that happens, whether it's for me or for him too. So I began studying human design back in 2021 during the pandemic because we switched into home education. And I went through, like, I studied for myself and for my kids. And then I went into his design and the one of our relationship. And some of the things that stood out was that without the distance that we had in aviation, we probably wouldn't have made it. And that
Mm.
is very unique to our design because there's a piece of it that it's called a single definition. And all that it means is that we're very independent people. And we've always have been. So it's okay for us to be apart from each other for 4 to 5 days. Actually, time we were together for more than, like, I don't know, 2 weeks at a time was when my son was born. Like 8 years later, we kept going in and out of each other's lives. And knowing that, like, when we were together, he would be like, I was waiting for him all the time because I was so excited. I had never taken that much time off, from work. And he was like, Julieta, when I get home, I just stand here and I watch the TV for 30 minutes. I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's all you needed to say. Right. But through human design, I learned that it wasn't that he didn't want to be with me, but rather that was something that he needed for himself, whether it was time away from me or from anybody else. It didn't matter. And often I think what we see or what we feel is that if that other person needs or wants space, it means that we think that there's something wrong, and B, more so, we think that we are doing something wrong and that they want space from us.
So the concept of human design, can you explain that briefly? Like
Yeah.
what exactly it is? Because I know it was new for me. I know probably a lot of the listeners are like, What is she talking about? I'm
Y-
not familiar with this."
Yeah. So I love human design. So it is a tool that helps you to make decisions from a space from within. So, and it's a little mystical. From its origins are a little bit mystical. So, and it mixes astrology, the Chinese I Ching, and the chakra system. And it is based on your date of birth, your time of birth, your place of birth. And he pulls out, like in astrology, there are the signs. In human design, there are 5 types: reflectors, projectors, manifestor generators, and manifesting generators. We are manifesting generators, both of us actually. And all that it means is like we're multi-passionate. So like we could be into this podcast situation, and then something comes along that is like shinier, and then we're like, oh, I'm ready to pivot into something else. So for us, it's been about giving us and supporting the other person's passions for when they're ready to pivot. Without the shame that often comes, especially for people like me that we're like multi-passionate. People will often say like, "Oh, you got too much going on. Can you just finish that one thing?" And I'm like, "No, because I'm done with this one thing. So I'm just going to move along." You know, um, but I felt like we always did that in very different ways. So when we went into the relationship of my husband and I, because you can do your chart individual, and then you can do a chart of how you and your other person connect. And in that chart, there are a few pieces that you can look at that, for example, for my husband and me, is that I have more some dominant aspects that could feel for my husband that he's not being seen. And
Mm.
we have worked together really hard because sometimes when I'm gone and I come home, my husband does all these things and he often goes like, not, I don't want to say not recognized, but I don't say it enough, and I
Mhm.
like to acknowledge everything that he does because we both put in work in just different formats. So looking at that relationship chart, you can kind of tell how much you influence each other. And some other pieces, like, for example, there's a profile piece. So it's like a little fraction number. And my husband and I are both a six. And what that means is that we go through life in phases. So from 0 to 30, we experiment. From 30 to 50, we reflect. And this is kind of where my husband just turned 50 and I'm going to be 40. I'll be 43 this year. This period, it's hard for us because there's a lot of reflection. So there's a lot of need for
Mhm.
time alone. And having the kids, it's not necessarily what people get when you have kids. So there's a lot of conversations. And something that my husband and I used to do for a long time, we did that. We would lay in bed and we would talk. We would talk for hours before like kind of drifting into sleep. And we didn't get that when the kids were born, right? Like it was just like
Mhm.
massive chaos. But as we explore more into our designs, we realize how much we needed that. And then we'd kind of try to get back into that within the limitations that we have, right? Like the boys would wake up sometimes. So it's just little by little. But for us, it really changed the way we connected with each other and how we brought we came back to each other. Um, so I mean, if I had a wish, I wish everyone would do their human design with their partners because then you start peeling the layers. Like some of the things that would make you upset about a person, it may not necessarily be anything about you. It's just something that is part of them, and then you learn how to um, explore that together.
I think that the key takeaway with that is just really like being willing to put in the work to understand your
Yes.
partner
Mm-hmm.
and respect their needs, which are
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily may or may not be the same as yours.
Yes.
So you both are very independent. You need your alone time. You need to follow passions. For other folks, maybe they don't need that and they don't understand
Yes.
that. And
Mm-hmm.
so that type of work to be like, okay, well, this person I love is acting this way, but it's not because they're rejecting me. It's
Yes.
because they, need a timeout to decompress and
Mhm.
process things. And
Mhm.
then I trust that we will get through this and I'm not going to take it out on them. I'm going to have a
Yes.
conversation with them.
Yes, and definitely not take it personal. I think if you were to explore, like, and maybe not necessarily with human design, even though I think it's a fantastic tool, I feel like a lot of people, when I share that, they kind of know that about themselves. For example, a projector will need an invitation, like literally an invitation of someone saying, "Would you like to come to dinner with me?" And that is
Hmm.
because you're inviting them because they have a really wider view. Um, and a lot of people know that, but generally speaking, we fall under the narrative from society that we're all supposed to be go-getters, that we're all supposed to be doing this, and we're not all supposed to be doing that. So I think we know some of those things already, but we ignore them because it doesn't fall in line with the narrative that's out there. So it's really hard to kind of like stay true to yourself when someone else is saying something completely different. And sometimes those voices are just really loud and you get caught up in it. But if you know that about yourself, then you're probably holding that same space for your partner. And we have been through a lot. Yes, we have been through postpartum depression. We have been through financial hardship. We have been through parent illness. My dad had kidney failure, and it was like I don't know, 2, 3 year process of, new kidney and all of that stuff. We have been through the pandemic together. We have been through a really career change for him. I went back to school while I was flying because I wanted to leave aviation. So I went back to undergrad when I was back in my 30s, and he helped me, supported me through all of that. Wasn't always easy. Um, and we would go through it, but every time I would get upset, I would wait. I would wait until we would fall asleep. And then I would just start rambling. And he was like, Julieta, he's like, I don't care what you have. Like, please just say whatever you need to say, but can you please not do it after I fall asleep? Like, I just could not help myself. Right. So, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I remember you saying that you threatened divorce a couple of
Oh,
times, and
yeah.
then the last that he was like, "No, you don't mean this. I know you too well."
Yes, yes. He said that. I always say that, not always, but like when I get really upset, we went through this house, that house that we live in right now. It was like it's an old house, almost 100 years old, and we had a really hard time because the house needed a lot of work and he did most of it. It was terrible. It was just a lot. And the last time I said, I think I want a divorce, he's like, that's fine, Julieta. It'll be 6 months before you realize it was the worst thing you ever did. And I was like, excuse me. But yeah, my husband's just yeah, he's really amazing though. And we have grown together a lot.
So, you had mentioned that you were married very briefly when you were
Yes,
very young, and
very
then
young.
you met your now husband 5-ish years after, or how many?
It was just around that, maybe like 4. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess a couple of my questions would be, what was different about him versus, I mean, not, I don't want to talk about your prior marriage, but like what was different about him than your other partners? Like what made him special? Also, like, you didn't want to get married. So how did you end up married?
Yeah. So, it's funny because they were very simple, subtle things. For example, one of the things that I think about a lot is that my current husband, when we get out of the car to go to the grocery store, he always waits for me. He doesn't walk in
Mm,
front of me. And my ex-husband used to do that, but it was also something that I remember my dad doing for my mom. Like he just waits for me. And they're very subtle things. Like my husband will ask me, are you hungry? Do you want me to cook some food? Like he's not afraid to do things that are considered more like for the wife versus the husband. He also grew up in a single family, in a single parent home. So he was also used to doing a lot of things. And I really appreciated that he didn't expect me to do all the things. And that's what,
mhm,
even though I grew up in Mexico, I was born and raised in Mexico, my mom ate a cold meal for, I don't know, 25 years, 30 years, because she was always cooking and making sure that we had a hot meal. She made
mhm,
homemade tortillas for close to 30 years and she made them twice a day. She made them in the morning and she made them at night. And one day, like her revolution was like, I'm done making them. And everyone was like, what? What do you mean you're done making them? Like, we have to buy them. So they were very subtle things that really meant a lot to me. He always waited for me. He always asked me if I needed, whenever I come home from work, I usually take a shower. So there's always a towel waiting for me in the bathroom. It's just very, very small. And also he just gives me space. Like I go crazy. Like my son sometimes would say, you're very explosive. Yeah. I mean, like he's 11 now, my oldest. He's like,
yeah.
you can be very explosive. And my husband, what he does when I get like that is like, I do that and he just holds space for that. He's not ready to argue with me. He just knows that that's how I am. And then it comes out. I don't mean it all the time. Honestly, like I've worked really hard to try to track. those moments. Like I'm
Mhm.
much more aware of when they're coming. So I'm because I don't want to affect people for no reason. Like this
Yeah.
just my own stuff. So I'm not trying to put that on them. It's just I'm really working, but it's an inner growth process. So yeah, so it's very subtle. It was very different. Like for my ex-husband, it was just like, yeah, like it just felt the respect and the value for myself and for our relationship was always there. It was
Yeah.
always there from the very beginning. So I've always valued that.
Yeah. I mean, he sounds great, honestly. Like that's what you want in a partner, someone
Yes.
that's thoughtful, considerate, and what you mentioned about him waiting for you
Yes.
by the car, that's equality. You're walking together. It's like
Yes.
almost like a
Mhm.
metaphor for
Mm.
life,
Yeah.
right? And these different things cooking together, somebody sharing the load, half the time, the other person picking it up on the other half, like
Mhm.
that is a partnership. So,
Yeah,
um,
it really is though. And I feel like we've always been like that. And honestly about the marriage, it's that I didn't want to get married. And literally one day I woke up and I just said, well, I think I want to be married. And my husband was like, okay. But actually, it's funny you say that because we had a hard time with it because we were
yeah.
supposed to get married. So in 2008, so 2006 we started dating. By 2008 we had bought a house together. We weren't married yet. And somehow along those lines, I was like, well, I think I want to be married. So I expected from him, and here is the key word, expected,
Mhm.
right? I was like, I expected this like grand proposal and like, because all of our finances were together at that point, we were living together, like our lives were intertwined. He had a hard time, and I think this goes back to his experience with his parents' marriage. So I nothing would come up. And every time we would talk wedding, he would just like we would just end up in a fight. And I'm like, listen, if you don't want to marry me, that's okay. Like I whatever, it's fine. But we need to like make a decision here because like what are we doing here? And I don't know, like I felt like I don't know why it was hard for him to say, sure, we should be married. Um but yeah, so we actually didn't get married until 2009 in September 2009. Yeah, I just said, I think I just want to be married. I'm like, well, why not? And
Yeah.
we got married and we now have two beautiful boys that have brought me a lot of growth. And they basically told me, lady, you got to get your stuff together because, yeah, we can't have you like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kids have a funny way of doing that. I mean, I don't have any of my own, but I definitely see it with my nephews and niece. Just the growth in my brothers, and
Yeah.
just the elevation. It's can't be selfish when you got these little ones that require your attention and your love and everything else.
Yeah, it's really hard to make sure your needs are met. And I
Yeah.
think that's why we have relied a lot in human design because we have been able to articulate more so our needs in a way that's helpful for the other person to help us.
So, we talked about the synchronicities that you had from the airline, like
Yeah.
different legs of the flights and
Mhm.
the birthday. Is there anything else that comes to mind over the course of your relationship that's just like, man, this is the universe keeps surprising me with this this person?
Yeah, I don't know though. I feel like beyond, and we didn't find out about our son's birth and our first date until like a couple of years later. But I was so corny, I still have the movie stub and all of that. Like I put it in a photo album, back in the day when we used to still do that,
Mhm.
right? Because people don't do that anymore, and that's okay. Um
Well, you must have known it was special from the get-go if you kept that movie stuff.
Yeah, like I kept everything. Like I was just so yeah, I kept everything. But I feel like we are to the point where we're so connected. It's almost telepathy style. Like I will call and he would say like I was just thinking about calling you, and we communicate with each other. It's to the point where you just almost know what that person's going to do the next in the next move or something.
Well, so do you have any advice for people that haven't met their one who are out there looking, any sort of advice for us singles?
Oh, I would say that to know your own boundaries and to know your own needs first, and to make sure that your needs are met because your needs matter. So when you meet someone, that it's okay when you're not having your best day and they're still like pushing, then that's not the person for you. You want someone that truly, fully sees you for who you are, but also supports you to fulfill that person, however that may be, whether it's supporting our endeavor, whether it's supporting time alone, or whether it's supporting time for extra sleep. I feel like we live in a culture where we're expected to be hustling all the time. And we don't all need that. Like, it's not always necessary. So, when you have a partner that said, it's okay to say no today. If you're not ready to go somewhere, it's okay to say no. Like, I'll stay home with you or I'll go without you. But knowing what you need first to be able to articulate that to someone is probably the most important thing. And I can guarantee you that you will feel better because you're not putting your needs on someone else's on someone else, right? Like to me, my needs, I'm responsible for my own needs, and I let my husband know what I need, but also I'm the one that has to make it happen. So he's just supporting me along the way, but we both know what we need. So it's just loving yourself to be able to be open for someone else that is right for you, and to be able to say no for that person that is not right for you,
Mhm.
because it's so important. Our time is so precious, and you want to be with a person that honors you, that makes you feel so big and so expansive and so powerful, that because you are powerful. So you just want to find that person that kind of backs you up and say, girl, off you go. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I mean, you brought up a good point, both of that and sort of what you were saying, tying it back to what you were saying earlier about expectation
Yes.
and like advocating for your needs. And like, I think that's a disconnect a lot of times with relationships because you expect something from a person that they're either not able to give you, they're
Hmm.
unwilling to give you,
Yes.
or they are not aware that you need that. And so, I think that's something that I've learned through relationships,
Yes.
is to communicate early and often. And
Hmm.
to your point, know what it is you need and
Yes.
don't just put those expectations on someone because that's not fair to them.
No, no, it really isn't. And it's something, when you said the expectations when they don't even know, and here we are upset for something that they don't even know that they were supposed to do for us. And I think often in
Hmm.
the dating scene, it's like a lot, we expect people to react the way we normally would.
Hmm.
And it's not always the case. So
Yeah.
to know that it's just so beautiful because you're also, it's a partnership. You're not putting everything on that other person, and that other person shouldn't rely on you, also for all of it. Like it's just you meet 50-50 in whichever way works best for both of you. And then that
Yeah.
way you can form this just, um power duo of two people that fulfill from within, and then they complete each other.
Yeah.
So,
And I really loved what you said too about, whether you need more sleep.
yes.
Because I do see that. I really see that in successful relationships and partnerships, especially those with young children. I love when I see like the dads get up with the kids and say, "Hey, mom, you had a rough night last night, you sleep in, let me get up and
Mhm.
make the dinner or the breakfast. And I mean, that is a partnership, but just understanding like those acts of service
Yes.
within a relationship, that understanding and just that generosity, it just it really those are the seemingly little things that really
Yes.
make a happy life together.
Yes. I mean, honestly, they really do. And even as a single person, like if you're with another partner, children do take a lot of your time and they take a lot of energy for sure. But also, when you're out in the workforce, you're working or you're, even family members, some of us, some people may have family members that are just like really draining, understanding when you have to replenish, with sleep
Hmm.
and the other person being okay with it. Because there's a lot of guilt for allowing rest, like deep rest, right? Like
Yeah.
and we just want to go out there and be doing all the things, and I'm like, I know there's a lot of things that we can do, like we have a lot of space for things, but we cannot do everything, so we have to pick and choose the activities, the people that make you feel whole. I mean, at least that's the way I choose it. I do an ROI on everything that I do. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Awesome.
energetic ROI. So if it feels good for everyone in the family, then we'll go ahead and do it. But if it doesn't, we are just going to pivot and like go, it's okay.
And I love that you, with your husband, you met a partner that is like with the human design work that you've been
Yes.
doing. Not every person is going to be into exploring that part, of themselves or in a partnership. And so that really kind of speaks to your partnership as well, that you have met this partner that like not only is investing in you and your passions, but is willing to open himself up to,
Yes.
something that means a lot to you as well. And to explore those parts of himself, because that's, I mean, I, a lot of people don't want to do the work and they don't
No.
understand it, so
Yeah, no, I really see that. We went to therapy back in I want to say it was like 2015, probably. It was 2015 because my son was really young and we went to the therapist and we had a torrential rain in Michigan where the basement flooded. And life just kind of took on a different course and we never went
mhm.
back. But, some of the same issues were coming up. And that was a lot of that was me having expectations of him. So when we went through this work in human design, it took a couple layers because it was first one thing, first it was the dynamics as far as like a home education family, like how to do that. Then we went through like the personal aspect of our life, and then we went through like the relationship. So it was like different layers where we finally kind of got to some of those like deeper memories that kind of shaped the way we were in a relationship. So it took a while and um but we knew that we had to work through that in order to evolve and keep growing. We've been together for 20, almost 20 years. Like,
Yeah.
that's a long time.
Yeah, it
That is.
is. And especially like you were in your 20s when you met, like
Yes.
that's like, that's so much growth just in itself. I mean, I look back at who I was at 23 and like, yeah,
You're
I've come a
not
long
this
way.
you're yeah, you've come a long way. You're not the same person.
No,
We
no.
went through birth, we had
Yeah.
two births, two boys. I went through medical issues with both pregnancies. I almost didn't make it with both of them. So we went through that. And now as we're going into a different stage of life, there are also changes that are there, and we have so much fun now exploring those changes with each other. As our eyes, my prescription just changed, just little stuff like that. But it it's so comfortable to be able to look back where we were 20 years ago and where we are now. and
Yeah,
and yeah, like I wouldn't change it for the world.
I
Like
love
he's
that.
he's he is my soulmate. Like I I couldn't have asked for a better person to spend his life with, for sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
I I love that, and
Oh,
I love how I love the emotion, but I also, like, a couple times when I've asked you a question, you just light up talking about him, and that's after 20 years, like, when you can have that sort of still glow talking about your partner, that's inspiring and,
yeah.
inspires me absolutely.
Oh, I'm so happy. Don't give up. There's really good people out there. I just think we're a little more disconnected. So there's a lot more effort on our parts, I think, to connect deeper with
Yeah.
people through even though social media and the internet are wonderful. I mean, without it, we wouldn't have met, right? So we
Right.
wouldn't be having this conversation. So there are good parts of it, but there's just a little more effort. And I think the right person will put that forth to be with you. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. I'm a person that like I don't do small talk well, and I think we talked about this in our
Yes.
conversation. I'm a deep person. I want to know
Yes.
your dreams and your ambitions and what gets
Yes.
you going, and
Yes.
that's why I'm doing this podcast because I
Yes.
just love learning about people and having these deeper conversations. So, that's not for everyone. So I gotta,
Yes.
I want to meet the person that is all of these things that all of these qualities that all these conversations I'm
Mhm.
having like just reinforces the things that I want, but that is also on that same alignment in terms of wanting a deeper experience of life. So
Yes. I mean,
yeah.
yes, I'm definitely uncomfortable with the small talk actually. Like, I want to
Yeah.
know your secrets too. Like,
Yeah.
please
Yeah.
come tell me everything. Like, I just want to know all of the juiciness of your life. But
Yeah.
yeah, it just takes a little bit more work, I feel sometimes, with all of this different mediums that we have, and but it's so worth it. I mean, having a person by your side that supports you no matter what,
Yeah.
it's so wonderful, but also know
Yeah.
that you are enough, if
Yeah.
that's yes, for sure. So,
Well,
yes.
thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed this conversation and your vulnerability and
Thank
openness,
you.
sharing everything. And I also want to spotlight what you're doing. So I know you have at least one podcast. I know that
Yes.
I, I believe you have two podcasts. But if you
Yes.
want to tell about your podcast, how people can connect with you and follow what you're doing.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much. So I do have two podcasts. My first one, which is the longest one, it's the unschooling lifestyle. And that is really a journey from our family to the world as to when we switch from mainstream education into alternative education and all of the beautiful things that happen, which the biggest one for us was reconnecting with our children and with each other. It helped us reconnect with each other after being in the busyness. I mean, I was the definition of a tiger mom, like completely. So that's our it's been running for 2 years, I think. We have close to 30 episodes, and I have been a guest on almost close to 10 episodes where I also share, some of that journey. Human design is the tool that I use to help families to transition into alternative education. So that's kind of my work. You can find us at theunschoolinglifestyle.com, and all of my information is there. And then I have flight attendant. No, it's flight attendant stories, but the podcast is back to base. And really what it is also a journey through the 20 years in aviation. Um, I have been with aviation longer than I have been with my husband. So I find it to be a relationship, and
Mhm.
I am kind of ready to transition into a different way of life, I guess. Maybe not being on the road so much. I really want to be home and explore other things. But aviation has given me so much, has given me so many experiences that I just like to put them into the audio format because I have fell in love with podcasting. So that's gonna slowly, it's a passion project, but it's out there if you are interested in listening to some of our stories from aviation and airplanes and flight attendants and passengers and all kinds of stuff, though. So, yeah, you can reach us there and just come and say hi.
Awesome. Please do, everyone. Julieta is lovely. And I just love what I've learned from you during our conversations about human design and
Yes.
relationships and life in general. So, well, thank you again
Thank
and
you.
have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You too, everyone. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for listening to Kismet. Please like and subscribe as it really does help. If you'd like to share your own Kismet story, you can reach out to me at kismetstoriespodcast@gmail.com, or you can connect with me on Instagram at Kismet Stories Podcast. Until next time, be bold, be kind, and be open to everyday magic, because your partner might be just down the street, or they might be on the airplane with you twice in 1 week.